was that I was muted that entire time. So we have today a very special guest. Mr. Glenn Lundy is in the studio. He's in the background getting prepped. When he is ready, he will give me a thumbs up and I'll bring him on. Ricole, can you hear me now? I noticed in the comments it said there was no sound for the first couple minutes I was talking, so we'll trim that out on the replay. Give me a thumbs up or give me a comment if there is sound now. Amazing. Thank you, Eureka. I appreciate that so much. So I'll reiterate what I said. So we have a beast of a man, Mr. Glenn Lundy, coming on. I met Glenn Lundy in Breakfast with Champions. The dude has literally changed my life in a few impactful ways. Amanda Dahl in the building as well. And she knows as well as I do how and why. But this guy is a sales and marketing expert, was in the automotive industry, moved mountains in that industry, and now is impacting people from a global level. So the Prime People podcast just puts you in a position where you can learn from people that have done the thing or been around people that are doing the thing that you want to do to a very, very high level. And one of the best things about Glenn is he pours into other people. I have seen this over and over and over, where he really thinks of others first, right? And for me, servant leadership is the highest calling anybody can have. And there's no better person than Glenn Lundy who's doing that. Glenn Lundy, throw me a thumbs up if you are good to go, brother, and I will bring you in. Of course he's good to go. He's always good to go. What's up, my man?
What's up, Justin? Man, it's a pleasure and an honor to be here, brother.
I appreciate you. Wait a second. How do you keep your energy level like this when you wake up as early as you do? That's what I want to know first.
Man, it's that good, clean living. You know what I'm saying? It's that good, clean living. Now, I'm just excited about, I spent a season of my life where nobody wanted to hear a thing I had to say. I was invisible, bro. So anytime I get a chance to share a stage, share an audience, speaking to people, I'm like, yes, let's go.
That's exciting. I gave people a little bit of context, right? I didn't really dig into how I came across you and how our relationship has developed thus far. What I did tell them was you have a background in the automotive industry, and our audience heavily involved in the sales and marketing aspect. We speak to entrepreneurs. I don't care if you own a coffee shop, a custom shoe store, or you own a multi-billion-dollar company. I think sales and marketing speaks to everybody. Where I like cutting through the noise, though, and you and I know this, is there's good salespeople out there and there's bad salespeople out there. And we're trying to protect these people from the bad ones and empower the good ones to know they can do it. But I think where I'm really trying to lead people in this conversation with you is the habits that you've built over your life, the story that you've told me and so many others of how you kind of just cut through the trenches. I mean, the dude had 800% growth in 5 years, sold thousands of cars. He's building and impacting people from a global level now, right? With Breakfast with Champions on Clubhouse, but not only that, speaking gigs that are coming up, throwing live events. Like it's now morphing into something of its own. And you have like 1,000 kids. But yes, it wasn't like that overnight, right? So bring us back, right? You're Spider-Man. You got bit by a radioactive spider. Let's start with the inception story. Who are you? Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Flagstaff, Arizona, man, and I am the son of Glenn Lundy Sr. and my mom. Her name is Dee, Doreen, and man, I grew up, middle class. We never went without, but we never had surplus. Once every 4 to 6 months or so, we'd go to a fancy dinner at Sizzler. Sizzler was our fancy dinner, and every once in a while we'd get to go to Baskin Robbins for some ice cream if the season was good. And so kind of grew up in that environment. My dad was African-American. My mom was white. And they got divorced when I was 11 years old. And Justin, it was the craziest thing, man. My dad remarried a black woman. My mom remarried a white dude. My mom and her new husband moved into Greenlaw Garden Apartments at 2600 East 7th Avenue in Flagstaff, Arizona, apartment number 28. And then my dad and his new wife moved into Greenlaw Garden Apartments, 2600 East 7th Avenue, apartment number 30. And so apartment 28 was my mom and her new husband. Apartment 30 was my dad and his new wife, and she had 4 kids of her own. And so I had an all black household and an all white household. And I grew up in between these two cultures. And it was crazy, Justin, because every stereotype you could think of existed in these two houses. Dad's house was like collard greens, fried chicken, Kool-Aid, sports on every channel, gospel music, Motown, all of that stuff. And mom's house was like country music, rock and roll, her sitting on the couch reading a book, humming show tunes. Like, it was just totally wild, man. So I grew up in the middle of that, and I am so thankful for it now. But back at that time, I really had a tough time figuring out where I fit in. My skin was too dark to be considered white, too light to be considered black. I basically became a chameleon. Whoever I was around, that's what I did, right? I did whatever to fit in. Hispanics, I was Hispanic. Native Americans, I was Native American. Blacks, I was black. Whites, I was white. And I literally lived that way, and that got me into a lot of trouble, not having an identity and just a lot of surface relationships. And so, yeah, so I spent that season of my life kind of in that space. And it wasn't until much, much, much later that I was able to be thankful and identify that living and growing up the way I grew up has now allowed me to put myself in other people's shoes and see other perspectives. Whether I agree with them or not doesn't matter. I can feel what they feel and experience what they experience. And that's been a great gift for me at this point in my life.
That's fascinating, because I identified that early on. I mean, I sat in the audience for a very long time. Our boy, Will, shout out to William Tong, was the super connector. I met you because I hosted a welcome room. It was the first room I ever did on Clubhouse, and I had him as a featured guest. I learned months after he hates the spotlight.
Right.
You came on, it was you. There were so many other people that popped in to give him some love. And then I followed you into Breakfast with Champions. But where I'm going with this was I watched you navigate some difficult conversations with people and really empathize with them, right? And really put yourself in their shoes. And I think I always ask guests in this episode, what's your superpower, closer to the end, but you identified it early on, is you are the everyman from that standpoint, where you can put yourself in this chair, in this jacket right now, and you could probably understand the world that I live in and have a very good perspective of how to translate that to other people. So I encourage people to definitely look a little bit deeper into human connections and what that means versus just what you want. Now, you explained that you went through a walk in your life where you were struggling to find your identity, though, and you were doing whatever to fit in and to get into whatever environment. Let me know a little bit more about that identity walk, right? Because I think it's important for people to do that work. But early on, life is scary, man. And as you're trying to make those adaptations and go through those different friend groups and stuff like that, you see different sides of the world. So maybe you can expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, Justin, it was definitely a wild season. It was definitely a wild season. And by the way, my executive assistant says that you're a very good looking, charming young man, by the way. Just wanted to let you know that. But, traveling through that season, I got into a lot of trouble, in and out of jail, hanging out with the wrong crowds, those types of things. And so I got into a lot of trouble, and I always had a reason for the trouble, right? It was so-and-so's fault. It was so-and-so's fault. It was so-and-so's fault. It was so-and-so's fault. If I wouldn't have been with that person, if I wouldn't have been with that person. And so I lived with an extreme victim mentality for a big chunk of my life. And also during that season, I was very Darwinistic, right? Very Darwinistic, because I didn't really have any deep relationships. So I didn't have a whole lot of compassion for humans. And I was very Darwinistic, survival of the fittest, evolution theories. There is no God, atheist. It's all about mind and body. There is no spiritual side. If I can get over on you, then I'm just stronger than you. I would take advantage of anybody and everybody, because everything was just really surface, and I didn't know who I was. And so because I didn't know who I was, and I didn't value who I was as a human, I didn't necessarily value other people either as humans. And instead we were just flesh and bone in my eyes. And that season lasted a long time for me, man, from, early high school all the way up until my late 20s. That was just my entire outlook on life, man. That's just how I saw things. And so it wasn't until I realized later, after spending some time homeless, spending some time in and out of jail, spending time depressed, alone, invisible, suicidal thoughts, attempted to take my own life, right? Like, it wasn't until I went through that whole season that I realized one really spectacular, fascinating fact. And the spectacular, fascinating fact was, no matter who I was around, no matter what environment I was in, no matter what city I lived in, no matter what state I lived in, no matter what job I had, no matter what nightclub I was at, no matter what changed around me, the result was always the same. It was always the same. Me in the wrong place at the wrong time doing the wrong thing. The result was always the same. And so when I realized that, it was like, oh, wait a minute. Maybe not everyone else is creating this chaos in my life. Maybe I'm the catalyst of this, because I'm the only constant in every situation. Glenn's the only one that's there. And so when I realized that, I was like, okay, wait a minute. If I am the catalyst of all things negative in my life, that must mean that I can be the catalyst of positive things in my life. And in order for me to do that, I have to know who I am. Who is Glenn Lundy? This person that has the ability to create. Who is Glenn Lundy? This person that has the ability to take any situation and ultimately shift it and mold it to affect him in either a negative or a positive way. Who is Glenn Lundy? And so that's when I started to go on this journey to figure out who I am. And I suggest everyone go on the same, because there's one simple truth. You cannot figure out who you are until you figure out whose you are. That's it. There's no way to know. Like right now we do the DNA test and the me plus me 23 or whatever, right? Because we understand that our ancestry, our heritage, where we come from, helps us define who we are. And so as I went on this discovery, trying to find out who I was, I had to figure out whose I was. And that took me through a whole series, Justin. I spent some time studying Scientology, which opened my eyes to the idea that we're actually 3D, not 2D, mind, body, and spirit, not just mind, body. And then from there, that wasn't necessarily a fit for me. So from there, I went to studying Buddhism, and I took some things from that, and that wasn't necessarily a fit for me. And I studied Christianity, and I started to learn about Jesus and his walk, and I really identified that. And I was really able to tap into the spiritual side of myself through learning about Jesus and his walk and his mission and the impact that he's made on this planet. And so for me, the spiritual enlightenment was when I was able to go, okay, now I know whose I am, which helped me to identify who I am. And that's the journey that I've been on for the last 13 years now, is really trying to dial that in. Who is Glenn Lundy? And once you kind of figure out who you are, then you start asking questions. Okay, well, now that I know who I am, why am I here, and what am I supposed to do? And those are the questions that start spurring some crazy action.
You know what? The way that you explained that was phenomenal, because you said something in the last week that I wrote down and I've been talking about with my team and the people in my world. And it's about finding your gift and then sharing your gift with the world, right? So as you're walking through your story and you're explaining that walk, I mean, I had a very similar walk. And when I found my faith, for me, it's like I lived two different lives, right? And I realized that the world is light and dark, unfortunately, right? And when you live in that dark world, a lot of times those people don't want the best for you. And when they see you succeeding, then they start throwing that haterade on you and slowing you down. Sure. And it really, you get around people that want the best for you and genuinely want the best for you. And then all of a sudden good things start happening. And then you start realizing it's almost like you were walking down a beach with no shoes on, your feet were getting kind of hot and tired. And then you found a pair of shoes or sandals, I guess in Jesus's case, put the sandals on. And then you start connecting more and more. And then you find somebody else that's like, hey, I'm taking that same walk too. Do you want to walk this walk together? And you create a community of people that start pouring into each other. And then you start seeing how people got to where they got, like your story from where you came from to where you are now. And some of the people that you are around, it feels like you peek behind the veil. And what do you decide to do? You decide to launch Breakfast with Champions. Actually, Ricole Jackson jumped in. She said lunch with champions because we're hanging out here today. And let's go, Ricole. I think you're creating a community where every time I pop in and I pop out, like I brought my best friend, best man at my wedding, into that room for the last couple of weeks. He's just been chilling out in the audience and he's messaging me every day because he doesn't think it's real, right? And I'm like, no, it's real. Like, trust me, consistency over time with these people, you're going to see they're almost just throwing that accountability piece out there as a group and then going and living their life and then coming back and then seeing, like, are you tracking yourself in terms of your goals and your aspiration? And that conversation that we had today with Amanda Dahl, shout out to Amanda Dahl. She's in the audience as well too. And she says, yes, we can hear you. Thumbs up and lots of hearts. Amanda Dahl is a pretty special person.
Yeah,
we had that conversation about the victim mentality or the accountable mentality, right? So what does it mean to you to have a group like Breakfast with Champions, or surround yourself with people who are driving you, knowing where you're going? Because we'll get into that later. I know you have some big aspirations, but what does it mean to you to have a tribe like you've found?
Yeah, it's so I'm just so grateful, man. I'm so incredibly grateful to have real, authentic, heart-to-heart connections. Like, what a gift! What a gift! And Breakfast with Champions is really a part. It's a big part. It's a big part. But it's just a step towards, the bigger mission. And so, Justin, I just feel like with everything that I've gone through in my life, to be able to sit where I sit now, to have a beautiful wife and to have 8 babies and a beautiful home and a place to raise my kids, and my parents are close, and to have, friends and people that I can connect with all over the world, bro, all over the world. Golly, it's just, it's such a gift. And now with Breakfast with Champions, I get to experience it 6 hours a day, every day. So it's like rocket fuel on top of something that I was already so incredibly grateful for, the connections that I had. And now we got the rocket fuel. And now I can do what I do best, what Glenn does best is create spaces and environments that empower others and highlight others.
Sorry, Glenn, I do have to mention really quick, we are having a bit of a connection issue. I think it might just be something in the sky. Like the clouds are just all over the place. And I had a segment this morning where the Wi-Fi dropped out, but continue on. I apologize.
Oh, no problem. No problem at all. And I keep seeing the live. It seems like you spin a little bit, but everything else seems to keep going. I don't know. It's interesting. But yeah, man, it's a gift, and it's an opportunity for me to do what I've always loved to do, which is I like to bring people together. I like to highlight other people, and I like to extract greatness, man. I love to dig in and be like, all right, Justin, like example, car business. I walk into a dealership that I'm working with, and they say, this is our top guy. This guy he's sold, Eureka says no connection issues. This guy has sold 40 cars a month every month for the last 3 years. And I'm like, oh, dude, what are you doing with your life? He's like, what are you talking about, man? I'm the top guy. Next closest guy to me sells freaking 18. I sell 40 cars a month every single month. I'm like freaking clockwork. I'm like, bro, you're freaking dying on the vine. What are you talking about? I'm dying on the vine. I'm the top guy. I sell 40 cars a month. Dude, if you're selling the same amount of cars this month as you did 3 years ago, you're dying on the vine. Why are you not at 45? Why are you not at 50? Why are you not at 55, 60? If you're that great, you would never, ever, ever, ever spend today in the same place that you were yesterday. And so I love being able to do that and being able to back it up with proven track record, right? God gave me a proven track record of being able to help extract greatness out of humans. And so I love doing that. I love shaking people up, putting them in the spotlight, putting them in comfortable positions, because I know that that's where their growth's going to happen, man. And I know that when Justin wins, the world wins. When Justin loses, the world loses. Like, that's truly my belief system. So Breakfast with Champions is just an opportunity to push even more people to get out there and be the best versions of themselves that they can be. And I am so incredibly grateful for that platform.
Man, people wonder why I do this. And this is exactly why I do this, right? What you're saying extrapolates, and we're all human beings, right? People look at people and they think you're a salesman or you're this or you're that. No, you're actually a human being. And the same premise that you take about the growth in your sales or your business life doesn't end there, right? I shared something that I was vulnerable this morning. I'm looking at my journal that I do every single morning because of concepts you've taught me and other mentors as well. And I have on my journal that I want to be a patient father. I want to be a suitor to my wife, which you actually instilled in me over the last couple of weeks in the conversations. I want to be present. And I want the fruits of the spirit to expound from my daily life. Now, this has nothing to do with my business, right? But it has everything to do with my business, because when you're making decisions about how you're conducting yourself in the small things, it's going to impact the big things. And if I'm a good husband to my wife, she's going to let me get away with a little bit more when I go to work, maybe work a little bit harder, maybe,
Sure.
push a little bit harder to get that deal done, knowing that when I come back that I'm focused on that side of things. And I think that's where the personal accountability comes in. So practically over the years, you didn't get here overnight. When did you start identifying the things that you needed to be accountable in, and how did you hold yourself accountable to those things?
Yeah, it took I'm a very hard-headed human being, at least I used to be. And so it was a lot of two steps forward, one step back for me. And it took years, and me landing out here in Kentucky and meeting my wife, and I was still a knucklehead even when I met my wife. And then we had our first baby, and that's when my wife was kind of like, look, bro, you're 30 years old, like, get it together, man. Like, let's go. I mean, like, figure out what we're gonna do. I'm counting on you, and in the kindest way, of course. My wife's an incredibly kind, human. And so I think as we go through seasons in life, Justin, what I've discovered is that every season follows the same process. And that process is something changes physically, spiritually, mentally, something changes. As soon as that change happens, it is always followed by struggle. We get a new job, it's a struggle to learn, to fit, to adapt. We move into a new house, it's a struggle. Pack up all our stuff, figure out where it all goes, figure out where the light switch is. How do you turn that light on? How do you turn that light off, right? There's like a season of struggle. New relationship, it's always followed by a season of struggle. At first, it's all roses and everything's amazing, right? But then we head into the season of struggle as we start to get to know each other a little bit better, and patterns and so on and so forth. Now, that struggle is where all of the growth happens. I see it in my children when they go from laying to rolling over to crawling to walking to running to speaking. Every single time there's a change followed by struggle, right? We got to build the muscle up. We got to build the coordination. We got to build the vocal cords. We got to build those things. And then there's success on the other side of that. And so as I've gone through these different seasons, I've just been able to recognize a little bit faster what season that I'm in. And that helps me to adapt to what's coming next, and to also make sure that I'm maximizing. If I'm in a season of success, let's go. Season of success to me means step on the gas, bro, because guess what's coming next? A season of change. Something's going to change. So we better get it while we can, because something's going to happen after that. So I just have learned, man, that everything's a season. Don't hold on to anything, because nothing lasts forever. Always be flexible, be adaptable, and be ready for the summer in the spring, be ready for the fall in the summer, be ready for winter in the fall, and just know that that's the way life goes. And stay positive, stay filled with gratitude, and you'll get better through it. I hope that makes sense.
Makes a ton of sense. I mean, as you're speaking, in my head says snuggle, don't struggle, right? When you're identifying the seasons of change and the attrition that's coming, pressure makes diamonds, right? And I think the people that see rain clouds and get excited because everybody else is going to hide when you're going out and getting it, that's the difference makers, right? I had a builder call me with a very challenging situation, and we figured out a way to turn it into a positive, right? It's all perspective. I do want to get into change in a minute, but I want to go back to the sales sides of things. So I want to know, because you being in the position that you're in, I mean, you see data, right? You've seen data, boots on the ground. You've done the job. You changed into a position where you're going in and you're consulting with people from that standpoint. What do you think one of the biggest misses there is when you're approaching somebody and trying to teach them that servant leadership or that servant sales mentality versus what they think is right? Or what is the most common sales mistake that you would see?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are really missing that the paradigm has shifted, and it has shifted drastically, especially in the automotive world. So, forever in automotive, the formula was pretty cut and dry. Build a facility at a good location, close to an interstate with lots of freeway traffic, hire however many people, one salesperson for every 10 cars you want to sell, make $3,000 a car or $2,500 a car if you can, and sell 100 cars a month, run a great service department, you'll make $1 million a year. That was the equation forever. And now that equation has been completely turned upside down. It doesn't matter where you are located geography wise, because we have internet. You must treat people at a different level and be competitive, because there are things like reviews, social media, Facebook, like they will call you out, bro. They will call you out. So you can't do any of the things that before you maybe could get away with. And with that shift, it's become and all businesses have become incredibly people-centric. So back in the old days, it was a pretty simple formula. I want money. I figure out a product that I can sell for money. As I sell more product for money, I realize if I could get more people to help sell more product, I would make more money, right? So the goal was money. That was the focus and intention, profit. I did it myself for a while, right? I found a product that I could sell, and then I start hiring people. That's how most businesses were built, from a profit-centric mindset. Today, you have to literally flip that upside down. Today, it's if I can get the right people, the people themselves, if I can develop people, those people will help me create a better product. And they will help me get more customers, and they will help me create a better experience, because I've got great people that I can trust to do that. And when I have great people and a great product and more customers coming in, then I make more money. It's complete upside down. You got to turn it upside down, because that's where we're at in 2020. And this is why personal branding works. This is why, that whole world, because people want to do business with people. So the product can actually be inferior if the character and the integrity of the people is excellent. You can actually have the product doesn't have to be the greatest product in the world, as long as the service is the greatest. And that's what's been, I think, the biggest dynamic change over the last probably 20 or 30 years that a lot of people in the automotive industry are still missing. They still think that it's a growth-centric industry, and it's not. It's people-centric.
I mean, the comments are blowing up. I even typed in my comment as you were speaking because I didn't want to interrupt you. I mean, it is flipped on its head, right? And I've been like, that's what we do here. I tell them I work for my team. My team doesn't work for me. I don't come in here thinking, man, I'm a task manager. You do this, you do this, you do this, you do this. I think when I look at people, I want to know what they're passionate about. What are you trying to learn? Like, what do you want to build? I want you to build a business that you're so successful, somebody tries to poach you from me, or you want to go open your own shop, but I want to create a culture that's so good you never want to leave, because it just feels like we're working together. And we've gone through a couple major changes. You would have seen this. You look at the Industrial Revolution and our parents' age, when it was, before they grew up, your parents just worked really hard on the line. School wasn't really an option. You'd work your way up to management, and then that was your parachute, right? Then our parents' generation was you go get an MBA or you go get a management degree, so you don't have to work your way up. You just jump right on into that management position, and you skip the first steps. You skip the hard work because you went to school and you had this degree. But now we're going through a digital revolution where that's flipped on its head as well. And the people with the degrees are coming out of school saying, I want these jobs, but the jobs aren't necessarily there because the industries are changing, right? I don't know if you know this stat, but when the color TV came out, everybody thought it was a joke. Everybody was advertising on radio. 90% of the Fortune 500 list lost market share that year. Yeah. That happened 5 years ago. And when social media became the dominant player in terms of eyeballs, attention, I don't care about TikTok or social media and all these different things. I care about where are people paying attention. Well, the fact of the matter is they're on Clubhouse. They're on TikTok. They're on Instagram. They're on all these platforms that I'm sure everybody watching who is in our demographic at some point said, I'm never going to be there. I'm never going to be on TikTok. Clubhouse is a waste of time. Go back to 2012. I'm never going to open a Facebook account. There's so many people that would have said that. And now that the dominant demographic is like 55 plus, right? So it's a very interesting conversation for you to identify that and make those changes. But as you progressed, right, and as you went from being in sales to consulting in sales, I have identified in you right now I see that there's a moonshot beyond where you are right now that you are working towards. And you're waking up, you're what, like 800 plus, you're like 888 episodes, I think it was. Is that right? What was your episode today?
Yeah, today was 884, I think, or 888. It's one or the other.
884, 888 episodes. I'll give you the 4. Let's say 888. You're putting forth effort every single day because you're heading somewhere and you see another shift coming, right? And you see that people are I don't even want to say the currency. The people are the clients, right? The community are the clients. You're hosting events in NYC, which we can plug at the end. I want people to all go there and definitely see what you're up to. But what is your moonshot? Like, what are you working towards? Because I see you putting this effort in and I know there's something there.
So Justin, it's interesting. And so many people have a hard time with this. And I was built a little bit differently than most. So I don't know where we're going. I don't have a 5-year plan other than with my family. When it comes to like personal, I have a vision of exactly what I hope my family looks like 5 years from now. But as far as when it comes to my business and the way that I serve the world, I literally take it one day at a time. And the reason being is that in my experience, what I've found is that I have yet to meet anyone who has created a 5-year plan, that has created a roadmap or a path to how they're going to get there and actually taken that roadmap or that path. Things always happen. Something always comes up. So something happened to me a while back, Justin. I was studying successful human beings, and I was studying John Maxwell, and I was studying Les Brown, and I was studying Eric Thomas, and I was studying Jim Rohn, and I was studying Tony Robbins, and I was studying Warren Buffett, and I was studying John Rockefeller, and I was studying the Edisons and all of these, Neil Donald Walsh and Robert Kiyosaki and Napoleon Hill, right? And I'm just going through and I'm studying and I'm studying and I'm studying. And it came to the realization to be that the most popular and impactful and successful human of all time was this guy named Jesus. And I was like, wow, think about it. He has sold 3.6 billion books, right? 3.6 billion books of his story. The next closest best-selling book is the Harry Potter series, and they're at 700 million, right? So about 20% of this biography, this story of Jesus. And so I was like, man, he's the bestseller of all time. And his message, golly, he was only on mission for 3 years, and his message has transformed the way, our years are AD and BC, and our calendars, and Christmas Day is a celebration. And 2,000 years later, people are being baptized in his name and their lives are being transformed. And so I'm going, okay, he's the most successful human. As far as I'm concerned, the number one most successful human in the history of all time. And success leaves clues. And so I said, okay, let's look at what he had to do in order to create the success that he's had. Well, the first thing that he had to do is there were no cars, there was no internet, there was no emails, there was none of that. So what he had to do is, if he wanted to get an audience of 30 or an audience of 50, or maybe an audience of 100, what he would have to do is he would have to strap on like a pack. He would have to, strap his sandals on, like you said earlier, maybe grab a donkey, travel across these deserts and the storms that would come in. He would face hunger. He would face famine. He would face thirst. He would face threats of death threats all around him every moment of every day. He would face disease. He would face all of these things, all of the elements, storms, everything, right? He would face all of that and have to travel miles on foot. to go into some community and get an audience of 20 or an audience of 30, right? And so I looked at that and I thought, this is fascinating. Look what he's been able to do. And all he did was stay on 100% on mission. He knew that his job, his role was to offer hope for all. The least of these, the greatest of these, to offer hope for all. And his job and his mission was to make a connection between human beings, earth, and spiritual being, right? And spirituality. And it was his job to make that connection. And that's all he knew. He didn't know where each day was necessarily going to take him. He didn't know exactly what the roadmap looked like. He had an idea of what was going to happen in the end, and he spoke of that later in his life. But he literally just took each day staying on mission and did whatever it took, faced whatever elements he had to face in order to spread a message of hope. And so I have taken that ideation, that experience, the clues that were left behind by Jesus, and I go, dude, I'm in 2021. I don't have to face any elements. I can literally click a button. Like right now, you don't even know if I'm wearing pants. I don't even have to put pants on to be able to spread a message. And so I am using the tools and the technology that I have available to me. I am aligning with people that have the same heart as me, not necessarily the same belief systems. I don't care about that. What I care is that if you and I have the same heart, then together we can reach further. And so the plan before was show up every single day. And that's what I was doing with Rise and Grind. And then all of it, on Facebook. And then all of a sudden Clubhouse came up. And it's like, okay, I'm just going to show up every day and inspire, motivate, educate, and offer people hope. And we'll do that on Clubhouse. And that has blown up and expanded. And Clubhouse could be gone tomorrow. Rise and Grind could be gone tomorrow. Facebook can be gone tomorrow. All of those things can be gone tomorrow. But I will still wake up tomorrow and go, okay, what tools and technology and resources do we have? And who can I align with to reach as many people as possible with a message of hope? Motivate, educate, and inspire. And that's just what I do, bro. Every day, that's just what I do.
You talk about a clarity of purpose, right? It all comes back to knowing who you are at the very, very beginning. Children, I find and you would know this times 8. I have one kid, right? So you would know this times 8. There's a great book called Raising Lions. And in that book, they talk about how when children are growing up, when they're acting out, quite often they're pushing out, right? They're looking for somebody that's going to just meet their hand and push back gently and give them some direction, right? Because they're scared. They don't know how to navigate this life. And sometimes when you don't have the ability to navigate the life and you start just reacting, those reactions, not knowing who you are or not knowing the answers or the purpose, which we are all looking for, right? The lack of purpose is what kills people every single day. And finding that purpose and showing up regardless of the technology and the platform, regardless of the size of the audience. And the attrition is what I really, really respect in you, because I think people do a few things wrong, right? And I think a few things that they do wrong is they look at technology as a crutch, or it paralyzes them because they feel like I could never put out that much content because I don't have a photographer and a team. Well, guess what? The YouTubers that have millions of followers right now started off with worse camera phones than you have right now. So what's your excuse now? Well, I can't do what Glenn's doing because I don't have an audience of 300 to 1,000 people following me. Well, guess what? Glenn probably started with a room of 20 people and showed up every single day until that room grew to the size that it grew. His character and his purpose and his vision just came consistently and people showed up. Now, I do want to speak to this because we discussed it in the group today. Early on while you were prepping for the show, the discussion was around, again, just how do people get on stage? How do people get the green beans? And for those of you that aren't on Clubhouse, understand they're meaningless. They mean that they're co-signed. They're not going to shut down the room. They're going to take care of things. They're just a member of the community that's been around for long enough that we know they're going to take care of things, right? But there was a conversation around how many people will DM moderators or people that are in any position of influence and ask them for something right away. let me moderate your room, or how can I do this? Or come again. If I came into your room and the first thing I said was come on my podcast, we would never be having an organic conversation, because I don't know you. I don't know your intent. You don't know me. You don't know my intent. It could just be that I'm bringing you on here to throw you into a funnel. And then all of a sudden, all my audience is going down this funnel and I'm selling them something.
Sure.
My bio literally says, I'm not for sale. I don't need anything from you. Everybody looks at my profile photo and is like, for sure, that guy's going to sell me something, right? But tell me that story about how you showed up and how you built that community, because it probably wasn't always easy, and you probably didn't always have the audience you have now.
Yeah. So I first showed up, like, as far as on social media, in my expertise, which was automotive. And so I used social media to help grow our dealership. And that was my intention behind that. Like you said, that's where the eyeballs were. So we had to create content that was going to, help us reach more people. That was it. That's really where it started. And so I started figuring out algorithms, figuring out social media and how it works, and so on and so forth, so that I could promote my company that I believed in. And in doing so, as we had success in the auto industry, that success was captured in videos and posts and so on and so forth, which drew in attention from not just customers, but other people in the industry started to watch and started to emulate. I started to be able to recruit some amazing, people from all over the country. They're like, dude, that guy looks like he's having fun over there. I'm not having fun at my place. And so we started recruiting, and we were able to really grow and expand. And so my initial following and audience was very much, 95% automotive. But my personality can't help but come through, and my mission can't help but come through. And so at that time, my mission was very small. It was, let's affect change here in this community and in this dealership, right? That's where I was initially. And I was doing that. And then that started to expand. And it was like, you know what? Let's eradicate the negative stigmas associated with the car business as a whole, right? That became the dream and the vision. And we did that through the auto dealership. And then it was like, wait a minute, maybe we could, if we change the way people start their day, maybe we could create some kind of positive motivational space online that could change the way people start their day. Then not only do we make a community impact, not only do we make an industry impact, but maybe we could start to make an impact for people outside of the automotive industry. That would be great too, right? Because the mission's the same. I'm trying to reach every little person in every dark corner of the world and let them know that I see them, I hear them, and that they have significance. And so I grabbed my phone, and I got like this light thing. And I talked to my wife, because we had all these babies in the house. And I was like, honey, I got to do a show like super early, but I'm going to be loud. And so she stuck me up in the utility closet at my house. It was the only space. It was like 6 feet wide, 8 feet long, had a water heater over on one side. And so I took a little ring light thing that I bought on Amazon, and I put my little phone thing in there. And I put some sound stuff on the wall behind me to make it look like I was in a studio and not in a utility closet with a water heater on the back of the camera where nobody could see it. And I put this chalkboard right here, up so that I could put the date on it. And if I had any guests, I could put their name on it. And so I put the chalkboard up, and I created this little room, put the desk in there and everything. And then I said, okay, I'm going to go live. And so the next day I got up at 5:27 a.m. and I went up there and I went live at 5:30. And I was like, oh, the lights, it's so bright. Oh, this is a horrible idea. What am I doing live on a video at 5:30 in the morning? This is miserable. And there's 6 people here looking at me wipe the sleep boogers out of my eyes, And that was episode 1, January 6th. It lasted about 8 minutes before I just it was so excruciating. I had to get out of there. And so the next day I was like, I should probably wake up a little bit earlier than 5:27 for a 5:30 show. And so I went for episode 2, man. And then, episode 10. And then next thing you know, it's episode, 30. And at some point, Justin, it was always important to me that I would say everybody's name that was watching, right? So 8 people watching. I'd say that. I'll make sure I say all 8 of their names. And about 30 or so episodes in, I got a message from a guy on Facebook, Justin, and he said, he said, Glenn, he was on the West Coast. I'm on East Coast. So it was 2 a.m. his time, 2:30 in the morning his time. And he said, Glenn, I decided to take my own life. And I drove out into the woods. I got a gun. And I was sitting in my car. And I was thinking about my 2 daughters and my wife. And I decided I was going to leave them a message on Facebook. I was just going to put kind of a goodbye message to everybody. And so I pulled out my phone and I went onto Facebook and he said, you were live, and you just popped up in my feed. And so I just clicked on it. And he said, Glenn, you said my name. He said, when you said my name, all of a sudden, like, it just shifted. Like, I felt seen. Like, maybe I do have value. Glenn sees me. Maybe the rest of the world doesn't see me, but Glenn sees me. And so he said in that moment, he watched the show. He said he cried. He said he went home. He told his wife what he was about to do. He got help. And now, fast forward, 4 years later, bro, he's thriving. His kids are thriving. His life was completely transformed just by saying his name in that moment. And that happened at like episode 30. And that's when I knew, like, all right, God's all over this sucker right here. Are you kidding me? Like, this is amazing. And so we just kept showing up, and it grew, and then people wanted t-shirts. So we started selling t-shirts, and people wanted to be a part of a group. So we created a group on Facebook, and people wanted live events. So we started having live events, and it expanded, and I was able to move out of the utility closet and get the big studio that I have right now. But the one thing that I did, everybody was like, man, we could put a TV screen, monitors. I'm like, no, bro, I'm bringing the chalkboard. Like, the chalkboard stays no matter what. And I've had guests come on and be like, bro, you got a chalkboard back there? How professional are you? I'm like, bro, you don't even know. Like, this reminds me every single day of how we started, where we started from, and why we started. Every single day I get that reminder. And yeah, now fast forward, man, millions and millions of views later, hundreds of thousands of people have been impacted. And I just keep showing up every day, bro. Because what if I don't, Justin? What if I don't? And there's some dude sitting in a car with a gun, So that's how it started, and that's where we're at, man.
Big man upstairs told you you're stuck now. You're telling that story, dude, like, you got to me. I'm like, you can't not stop recording after that story. I mean, again, it is what it is. That explains everything. And man, like, let that be a lesson to everybody out there, right? From the standpoint of the day one mentality that you have, right? The chalkboard's still with you. This is totally random, but I've been trying to get these photos put up in my boardroom for months with all these different sites. It wasn't happening. I finally found this random site, and I'm like, this will look perfect. And of all the photos I chose a photo that was the very first photo I ever took when I got in the real estate business. I went and bought a $100 camera. I thought an agent needed a camera to take houses. I don't know why. Took a photo of a building. I'm like, yeah, this is going to be like the building. That's like our logo. It was actually on our first set of business cards, which was terrible at the time. The photo came in, and it's hanging in my boardroom. And I think everybody would be apt to have a reminder of where they started that they can walk by and they can look at, and they can humble themselves and have that day one mentality that you're showing up, and I hear it in your voice. You feel like you're just getting started every single day. It doesn't matter if there's a billion people in that room, you're still Glenn, and you have that core identity. So literally, from the bottom of my heart, probably one of the favorite episode I think I've ever done, just hearing your story and the impact that, that gentleman had on you, and how you're extrapolating it to other people and seeing value. I do hear you say everybody's name. You said my name before you explained that a couple of minutes ago. I felt valued. I appreciate it. I'm working out every single morning, happy as a clam, just sitting there in the audience. You pull me up, man. It means the world to me. But if you don't, I'm not pressed about it, because I get it. It's a big platform, right? Like, I never have an expectation of it. I know that I'm valued, whether I'm the lowest or I'm the highest. It has nothing to do with that. We are all equal, and you do a great job doing that. It's 3:28. We have a hard out at 3:30. We have an audience member question, and it literally says, from Amanda Dahl, Glenn, you're standing on the top of a mountain, and the world below is cheering. Glenn. Somebody hands you a mic and says you have 2 minutes. What's your message?
I would say, if you and I were walking and we were at the mall and we looked over and we saw this tall, slender young man, and I said to you, that's LeBron James's son. If I were to say that to you, my guess is that you would instinctively and intuitively probably think, he could probably play some basketball. He's probably pretty good at basketball, right? I think we could all agree there. And maybe he's not. Maybe he chooses a different path, right? But I think we'd all kind of make that assumption because we all understand that whose we are, where we come from, gets planted in our DNA, right? Our father's gifts and abilities can be planted inside our DNA, and maybe we can bring those to fruition. And the reason I share that example with you is because I believe that you and I are children of God, the God of the universe, the God that made everything. And God is a creator inherently and has passed down in you, in your DNA, the ability to create. Just as little LeBron can probably shoot a hoop, the same is true that you can create the absolute best, most impactful, highest level, most imaginative life that you can possibly conceive. It is within your grasp. It is within your reality because of not who you are, but because of whose you are. So I challenge you as my brother and as my sister, I challenge you to continue every single day to work towards becoming the absolute best version of yourself that you can possibly be. Not an average version, not a little bit above average or a little bit below average, but the absolute best version of you, not the best version of someone else, but the best version of you that you can possibly be. I challenge you to that. And I also want to make sure, if nobody's told you yet today, let me be the first. I absolutely stinking love you. I do. I absolutely stinking love you. So let's rise together. Let's evolve together. Let's go out and make an impact, and let's do it together.
I love you too, brother, man. That means the absolute world to me. The comments are blowing up. Julie, Galatians 5s are true north. Raquel Jackson, thank you for seeing her and pulling her up. She's there all the time. Yes. Athena, your story had her tearing up. Human connection is so powerful. And it is all about human connection. And yeah, without words, I'm going to leave you on that parting comment, my man. I know you got lots to do. I will see you bright and early, I am sure. And I'm eternally grateful that you took the time to do this.
Thank you, Justin. Yes, man. Awesome. You do an incredible job. And I appreciate you sharing this space and this time with me. It means everything to me, bro. Absolutely.
Let's get it, my dude. I'll catch you on the flip side.
All right, brother. See you.
All right.